For more than 1,000 years, Constantinople stood as one of the greatest cities the world had ever known. Founded in the year 330 by the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, the city was built to be eternal. Positioned between Europe and Asia, it controlled the narrow Bosporus Strait, the gateway between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Trade, culture, religion, and power flowed through this city like blood through an artery. Constantinople was not just the capital. It was Rome itself, reborn. While the Western Roman Empire collapsed into chaos and ruin, Constantinople endured. It survived plagues, civil wars, religious conflicts, and countless invasions. For centuries, enemies had tried to break its walls. Every single one of them failed. The city became legendary for its defenses. The massive Theodosian Walls, layers of stone, towers, and moats, stretched for miles. They were considered the strongest fortifications on earth. Many believed Constantinople was protected not only by stone, but by God himself. And for over 1,000 years, that belief seemed true. But by the 15th century, the world around Constantinople had changed. The empire that once ruled the eastern Mediterranean had been reduced to little more than the city itself. Former provinces were gone. Armies were gone. Wealth was gone. Constantinople still looked magnificent, but behind its walls, it was fragile. The population had shrunk dramatically. Entire neighborhoods stood abandoned. Where hundreds of thousands once lived, only around 50,000 remained. And beyond the walls, a new power was rising. To the east, the Ottoman Empire had spent generations expanding. Slowly, relentlessly, it swallowed land once ruled by Byzantium. By the early 1400s, Constantinople was completely surrounded by Ottoman territory. The city had become an island, trapped in a hostile sea. Inside Constantinople ruled Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos, the last Byzantine emperor. He was brave, disciplined, and deeply aware of reality. He knew the empire could not be saved. But he believed the city might still endure. Outside the walls stood a man who believed the opposite. His name was Mehmed II. Mehmed became Sultan of the Ottoman Empire in 1451, at just 19 years old. To many, he seemed too young to rule. But those who underestimated him would soon regret it. Mehmed was intelligent, ambitious, and utterly obsessed with history. He studied Alexander the Great. He studied Caesar. And above all, he studied Constantinople. From a young age, he believed it was his destiny to conquer the city. To Mehmed, Constantinople was not just a prize, it was the key to transforming the Ottomans into a true world empire. Whoever controlled the city would control trade between East and West. Whoever ruled Constantinople would inherit the legacy of Rome. And Mehmed intended to be that ruler. Previous Ottoman sultans had tried and failed to take the city. Mehmed was determined not to repeat their mistakes. He prepared carefully, methodically, ruthlessly. First, he secured his borders so no enemy could attack from behind. Then, he strengthened his navy, building one of the largest fleets the Ottomans had ever assembled. But most importantly, Mehmed embraced a new and terrifying technology: gunpowder. A Hungarian engineer named Urban approached the Byzantines first, offering to build massive cannons to defend the city. Lacking money, the Byzantines turned him away. Mehmed did not. Urban was given unlimited resources. Together, they created weapons unlike anything the world had seen before. The largest cannon, later called the basilic, was enormous. It took dozens of oxen and hundreds of men to transport. It fired stone balls weighing over half a ton. Each shot could be heard for miles. This was not a weapon of precision. It was a weapon of terror. In early 1453, Mehmed marched toward Constantinople with an army estimated between 80 and 100,000 men. Janissaries, cavalry, engineers, sailors, all moved toward the city with one purpose. On April 6, 1453, the siege began. The Ottoman army surrounded Constantinople by land. Their fleet blockaded the city by sea. The once invincible capital was now completely encircled. Inside the walls, the defenders prepared. There were only around 7,000 soldiers available to protect the city. This included Byzantine troops, local volunteers, and a small number of foreign mercenaries. Among them were several hundred Genoese soldiers led by a skilled commander named Giovanni Giustiniani. Every man knew the odds were hopeless. But they also knew the walls had never fallen. The Ottomans began by bombarding the city day and night. The massive cannons shook the ground. Stone cracked. Towers trembled. Entire sections of wall were reduced to rubble. Yet every night the defenders repaired the damage. They filled breaches with rubble, wood, and earth. They worked by torchlight, knowing the next sunrise would bring more fire. For weeks, this brutal rhythm continued. Mehmed launched assaults again and again. Waves of soldiers rushed the walls, climbing ladders under a storm of arrows, stones, and boiling oil. Each attack was repelled, but each defense cost the city precious men. At sea, the Ottomans attempted to force their way into the Golden Horn, the protected harbor of Constantinople. A massive chain stretched across its entrance, blocking enemy ships. So Mehmed did something extraordinary. He ordered his ships to be dragged over land. Using logs, grease, and sheer manpower, dozens of Ottoman ships were hauled across hills during the night and launched directly into the Golden Horn behind the chain. When the defenders awoke and saw enemy ships in their harbor, morale collapsed. The siege tightened. Food supplies dwindled. Sleep became rare. Fear became constant. Still, the city refused to fall. By late May, Mehmed knew time was running out. Disease was spreading in his camp. Supplies were strained. He decided on one final, overwhelming assault. On the night of May 28th, Constantinople prepared for the end. Church bells rang across the city. Citizens gathered in Hagia Sophia for what many believed would be their final prayers. Catholics and Orthodox, divided for centuries, prayed together. Emperor Constantine XI attended the service. Afterward, he addressed his soldiers. He spoke of duty, faith, and honor. He reminded them they were defending not just the city, but history itself. According to witnesses, he asked forgiveness from anyone he had wronged. Then he went to the walls. Before dawn on May 29th, the final attack began. First came waves of irregular troops, sent forward to exhaust the defenders. They were followed by Anatolian soldiers. Then, at last, Mehmed unleashed his elite forces. The Janissaries advanced. At the same time, the cannons fired relentlessly. One section of wall near the gate of St. Romanus finally gave way. Giustiniani was gravely wounded and carried from the battlefield. Seeing this, panic spread among the defenders. Ottoman soldiers poured through the breach. Some accounts speak of a small gate, the Kirkeporta, left open by mistake. Whether legend or truth, enemy troops soon appeared inside the city. Emperor Constantine XI was last seen fighting near the walls. Refusing to flee, he tore off his imperial insignia and charged into the enemy. He was never seen again. By sunrise, Constantinople had fallen. After more than 11 centuries, the Roman Empire was no more. Mehmed too entered the city later that day. He rode to Hagia Sophia, where he ordered it converted into a mosque. Contrary to legend, he moved quickly to restore order. Looting was limited. The city was too valuable to destroy. Mehmed declared Constantinople the new capital of the Ottoman Empire. He would later be known as Mehmed the Conqueror. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves across Europe. Scholars fled west, carrying ancient Greek texts that would help ignite the Renaissance. Trade routes shifted. The balance of power changed forever. Historians often mark 1453 as the end of the Middle Ages. But beyond dates and definitions, something deeper was lost. A city that had stood for over 1,000 years, a bridge between worlds, cultures, and civilizations, had finally fallen. Not in a single day, but after centuries of endurance. And in its fall, a new world was born.